Thought it'd be kind of interesting to do a quick rundown of all the projects I have to do around the place. So, starting in the shop, I need to redo this area underneath my workbench. It's kind of cluttered and not good storage, so that needs to get redone. My bandsaw spins too slowly because it was set up for cutting metal and I'm going to be cutting wood with it, so this whole drive system needs to be redone. I have several hand saws which need sharpening, so I'm working on that. This bench is a bit of a mess. I could really use better storage underneath. I would like to find a better place for the dust collector. I thought about making a little lean-to shed outside to keep that outside, or moving the air compressor into the garage and running a line in here. At some point I should probably patch up that cellulose, get that covered up. So this motor mount is pretty sketchy. It works, so I'm going to leave it as is for a while, but that's definitely on the list of things that could use improvement. Got this free scroll saw a while ago, but it needs a plate here. In the corner there, that's a propane burner for a propane forge, or propane whatever. Soft fire bricks and a crucible for if I do any casting stuff. I'd like to make some casting. Somewhere in here, oh yeah, one of those buckets has sand in it that I'm working on turning into green sand. Motorcycle should probably be put away for the winter. My pile of oak boards, which didn't get turned into flooring yet because I wasn't sure if I would need them. So I'm going to need to turn some of those into flooring probably, because I don't think I'll have enough. Oh yeah, almost forgot. I've got the Sailfish sailboat. I started that a few years ago. That's a new door that is in good shape but needs to get installed for the basement. Got some strips of melamine which are going to help make a form for countertops. I'm going to try doing concrete countertops in the bathroom. At least I was going to. Got some slat wall in back which is going to go up somewhere in the garage eventually. Got a piece of it there, but no actual hangers for it. Eventually, I'll get hangers. So here's our messy shoebox. I want to make a coat hanger and shelf rack thing to go along that wall. Obviously, we need trim along the doors, baseboard, all that sorts of other good stuff. The basement needs a door. Ceiling needs crown molding and stuff. Yeah. Need to finish the living room floor.
Oh God, it's such a mess.
I know, it's my wife's upset that it's such a mess. Cleaning is also part of the list. So got my pile of boards there. Our bathroom, which thankfully it's dark in there so you can't see that. That sink was our only sink, so it's a big slop sink. So that's going to get replaced with a regular, like, normal person bathroom sink. And needs flooring, but I can't finish the flooring in here until the bathroom upstairs is done, because otherwise we'll need a bridge to get into our bathroom downstairs. Dishwasher needs to be installed. The wife will be happy when that happens. Yay! Kitchen cabinets need to be moved, because this cabinet is probably going to get taken out and moved somewhere so the dishwasher can go there next to the sink and all that other good stuff. Need actual countertops. These are leftover ones from our other kitchen that we tore out. The stove needs to be leveled, which shouldn't take too long. I've just been procrastinating. Need to make a thing that goes over the stove, the whole little cabinet thingy. This giant microwave that's on top of the fridge should really be over the stove. My wife wants everybody to know that those are clean dishes that were just done. So it's not a big pile of dirty dishes, it's a big pile of clean dishes, which is one step up from, well, several steps up from a pile of dirty dishes. Oh yeah, need to make an apple pie. Oh, we forgot to clean I should soak the mixer. Maybe I'll do that now. So stair treads need to be taken up and resanded. The finish is mostly gone on them. They actually need to be kind of raised up So if we put another threshold there, it's going to be a weird like angled step to the first stair. It's going to be sort of a trippy thing that makes you want to fall down the stairs. So I think when I take up the treads, I'm going to shim each one to raise it up. You know, not each one up 3/4 of an inch, but progressively up so I gain that 3/4 of an inch for the flooring. Yay, one project done. The bathroom has finally been painted. It needs a second coat of paint. And the bathtub works, but needs tile. And need tile floors. Got our tile samples, need to pick those out. And need to get the vanity installed and the electricity done. And the mezzanine needs floors, needs closet doors, needs trim. I'd like to get a better thing here for the closet. You just got a dresser in this closet. Kitty music box. The arm broke off. And so now the kitty doesn't jump rope like it should. It kind of flops around funny. So kitty needs a new jump rope stand. This is the purple room. It's going to be eventually baby girl's room. Yeah, need a better bookcase here. That's just a follow particle board bookcase. So I need a better bookcase there. Be making that. I need a new railing. I should really close in the basement stairs because all the stuff that we have underneath it on this nice little shelf gets covered in dirt and cat hair. So these shelves are not terrible, but could use a reorganization. Been slowly working on that. We need new lighting down here. This has the rest of the house has all been redone, but this has a bunch of the cloth wiring stuff, and it's not really well done, and the lights are not very well placed, so that needs to be done. This furnace needs to go. It's a wood oil combo, and it's really too big for the house now that the house is actually insulated. This dryer, we really need a new one. It sounds like there's rocks in it, even when there's nothing in it, so it's probably a bad bearing in the back. It doesn't dry very well anyways, so we might as well just get a new one. My wife's coat, cool coat, needs buttons. Oh yeah, the inertial dyno needs a new shaft made. The one I have is kind of too small. Here we have part of a CNC plasma cutter build that I'm working on with Cyrus. Got a couple of big stepper motors. One is at my dad's place. There's going to be 3 axes, and this runs off that old ancient PC I got for $5 when the local Radio Shack closed. That oscope is broken, so I'll need to work on repairing that at some point. There's a big, underneath the radio controlled car, there's a big battery charger tender reconditioner tester thing, which I'm going to try to figure out what's wrong with it. I've done a little bit of research and haven't come up with anything. My South Bend 9 Junior lathe, it's in pretty good shape. The table's a little bit rickety, so I could really use a better table, or this one could be sturdier. My shooting stuff is in that cabinet. Yeah, bunch of brass cases. If I ever get into reloading, which I thought about doing, but like I need another hobby. Definitely got enough of those. So I've been using this aluminum casting here that I made with the little recess here where it shrunk down as a place to put cutting oil. Really, I need to make a new stand, a little cutting oil cup, probably like Mr. Pete 222 did. It seemed like a good design. Oh yeah, another thing, another project. Keep coming up with more and more projects. Steady rest. It does not fit my lathe, but it's mostly a steady rest. It's got all the pieces to it, so I'm going to try to get that to fit on the South Bend 9 Junior, so it should be a good size. I had this sort of support beam in, but it's kind of in the wrong spot, so the floor upstairs was moving a little bit, so I jacked it back up again, but I need to get a new permanent support in rather than using the screw jack. Got a couple of sewing machine projects I need to do. My dad has a tool roll that needs to be redone, like for wrenches. I'm going to try to make him a new one. I've got some denim which should work well for that. Be nice if this stuff was gone. I've got the old cistern from when the house was spring fed and the old pump. I don't really have a use for that. I already stole the motor off the pump tank. Got bunches of scrap copper that I'm working on making into smaller chunks, so if I get into casting I can use it to try making some bronze or something like that. This should go over by my lathe. Need to find a good spot for it. Got a set of cast iron legs for that lathe, but I think I like the table better, so now I've got legs and a light that I don't really know what to do with, but don't really want to get rid of because they're vintage South Bend fancy legs, so maybe I'll sell them to somebody. My father-in-law gave us a whole bunch of Metafast and like protein shake things that we don't really like. I don't know why he gave them to us, but anyways, we've got a bunch of those, so that needs to get cleaned up and taken care of, eaten. Been joking with Amanda about trying Metafast Monday. Some of these plants need to be repotted, so add that to the list. Another project outside is the back of my house. All these little trees are growing up now. I don't want them to become big trees because they'll really start shading the back of the house, which is shady enough as it is. So another thing on the list of projects is this old pup trailer. We don't really want to use it on the road, but we're thinking of getting it set up by the firewood processor so we can ferry or shuttle logs back and forth. So even though it's being used as a coat and rag rack, this is a surface grinder which I got this spring that I want to get hooked up in here, but that's another project. The lights in here need to be reworked. See, that bay doesn't come on. They're old 8-foot bulbs. Might replace them with newer LEDs. We might get different ones. Anyways, they need work because it's right over the machining area. The Monarch lathe mostly works. The forward reverse feed lever needs some repair. I think it's inside the gearbox. I think it's missing a key. There's a little bit of slop on one of the shafts. The mill is in pretty good shape. The head could probably use a disassembly and cleaning because who knows when that was last done, and the quill's a little bit sticky, but overall it's in pretty good shape. This oil can is going to get converted to be able to oil these Zerk fittings. Embarrassed to show you this, but there's grease coming out of this one. There shouldn't be grease coming out of these. These are, well, they're the same fitting type as grease fittings. They are not for grease, they are for oil. So the horizontal bandsaw is in pretty good shape, but this gearbox really needs some work before we do too much more with it. I haven't looked at the coolant system, but I might not even bother with coolant for this. This hydraulic downfeed cylinder seems like it leaks a little bit, so that's on the list, but that's not that important. I put wheels on this table here, so I'd have something to set stuff on when I'm machining. I can just turn around and set stuff on it. So that I'm going to put on a bottom deck here, and then it can live underneath this bench when it's not being used, so it doesn't take up floor space. On this bench you can see this is part of the setup for that long-awaited CNC plasma cutter I started many years ago. Right now it's set up so the gearing is one step on the stepper will move the rod, the nut on the rod, theoretically, I think 2/1000ths. So we'll see if that's too much or too little or what. So that's why I wanted to get one made and make sure that I got my gear ratios at least close. Here we are out at the sand pit. This is one of our equipment sheds. The shed roof did not last very long. These are IKO shingles, and I don't know how many years old they are. Only probably 20 years, 15 years, something. I don't know. They're not that old. They should not look as terrible as they do. See if I can zoom in on those for you. yeah, that's just awful. Also in this shed, these are pretty far down the list. My dad has packed in this bay, there are 3 Fordson tractors, which he'd like to pick the 3 and make one good one. We think we should have enough pieces to do that. This beautiful piece of scrap metal motorcycle tire pushy thing is just basically scrap metal now, but this was a soapbox derby car or gravity powered racer. Almost killed me and a few spectators, so it's now relegated to rust out here. So it really should be cut apart because there's some good useful metal in there. The beloved Fordson tractor. It's been a great little tractor. It's my dad's first tractor he bought, and still running great. It's a nice little tractor. Good speeds. Yeah, it's just a pleasant tractor to use. One thing about it though is the hydraulics aren't great on it. The pump's a little bit weak, and it's got a proprietary like pump that you can't really get parts for. One of the other 3 might have an okay pump, but it's unlikely. So this tractor does have this side PTO for driving a flat belt. Can't really see that because of the shadow. But anyway, side PTO for driving a flat belt, which I don't think it's ever been used as long as my dad's had the tractor, or maybe once to run an old scary cordwood saw. But really, we don't need that. It looks cool, but it's not really used. So I was thinking we could make a plate which mounts on there and mount a regular standard hydraulic pump which would run off whatever gearing this thing runs off of. And then we'd have a nice hydraulic pump. This crawler is basically, most of it's just a pile of scrap metal. My dad got it because the tracks and undercarriage are pretty much brand new. However, it hadn't been driven nearly enough. So these aren't broken in at all, and they're rusted solid. So the tracks, you can wail on them with like a 16-pound sledgehammer and they don't move up and down. If you take the excavator or the backhoe and you push on them, you can get them to move. So we'll probably not be able to get those off and make them usable. It'd be kind of fun to do something cool with the engine out of this thing because it does run. Skyla is just an old dog. Old dog, needs work. One of the rear drives on this leaks a little bit, so we'll need to get that checked out. Make sure it's all in good shape. In here we have my old BMW motorcycle. I bought this a few years ago in boxes and got it running. Drove it for a little bit, but then I bought a house that needed a ton of work, so progress in this project just died as soon as I bought that house. Got my soapbox derby car, gravity racer, my 2 weird ones here, the one with the not round back wheel and the single wheeled one. It's a giant plywood ring, and the cart there rides around the inside of the ring and you go down the hill. These were both after the other one that was made on a railroad track and almost killed me, because these guys go slow, so if something terrible happens and I crash, it won't hurt very much. The old Timberjack skidder, that's in pretty good shape. I mean, it's old and a little bit cranky, but it kind of needs some hydraulic help. It doesn't really turn all that well at low speed or when you have the winch dropped, so it might need a new pump, but we don't use it a whole lot, so it works for what we need it. This beauty we have no plans for, but it's somebody else's project, pretty clearly. It's got a 2-wheel drive front end, but in the back, this axle is a front axle. It's got the steering stuff, but it's a 4-wheel drive front axle. So at some point, I think somebody had planned on making whatever this frame is into a 4-wheel drive truck. So this is my dad's house, and big project going on here. We're residing the whole house. That's just green building wrap. Replacing all the windows, re-insulating. It has fiberglass and mouse poop right now, sort of standard 1980s vintage. And we're doing rigid foam panels with spray foam around the edges to seal them. This is a sunroom porch addition thing. So that leads into the living room. So that's been done. The roof needs to be redone also. Stone wall, well, it looks good from a distance. It is pretty good. But there's a berm forming at the bottom and the top is getting a sinkhole because there's no fabric or anything on the inside. So all the sandy soil that's around here is just, every time it rains, just gets washed out the bottom. So eventually stone wall is going to disappear and there's going to be a sinkhole up on top. That's the old horse barn. Since my mom passed away, nobody has horses, so really it could be repurposed into something better. The fence around it makes it kind of annoying to get stuff in and out of, but keep thinking maybe we'll get ponies for the kids or something, so that's still been hanging out there. Probably can't see. Oh, where's my finger? There it is. That is a sailboat, which needs a bunch of work. Free boats are not free, but at the same time it floats and it sails and it's kind of fun to take up to the local lake. But the inside is all rotten plywood and jagged fiberglass shards from where the rotten plywood fell off the base of it and left a ridge of sharp fiberglass. So that needs to be fixed or gotten rid of. It'd be nice to have a slightly smaller sailboat than that one, but fixing that one is probably not worth it as far as just pure dollars and cents goes. But it would be quite a learning project to figure out how to cut all those curved panels and make the inside of a boat. And the first time I do it, it'll probably come out like crap. So what better boat to have a crappy interior than a free one you got on Craigslist. Another shot of the east end of the house, or a shot of the east end of the house. So that's a screen room we built. This is all Typar now. It's going to get torn off and we're going to put on that other type of building wrap. This sheet's on backwards because it's the other side of the other one, and it's just really to protect the boards and stop moisture from coming in until we'd use the other building wrap. But then there's going to be some storage underneath there, so it should be a pretty nice project, pretty nice addition to the house when we're done with it. Say outside of my dad's shop at his place, it's a good shop. You've seen the inside of it. It's where we need lights in the lathe and stuff are in there. We could really use a little bit more room now that I'm starting to put in machining stuff. So we had talked about putting an addition out this way, or maybe filling in these bays and making them enclosed space and putting something else on the other side. This is a shot of the west side of the house. We haven't really done any work on this side yet, but you can see all the siding is kind of, oh, it'll focus. Siding is pretty worn. These windows are rotten at the bottom. 78 Ford. That actually works pretty good. I think it needs a carburetor rebuild. We've got the kit, the jets for it, but the float, the needle and seat leak. We parked it facing steeply downhill at one point and filled up the engine with oil, with gasoline. So it was full right up to the top. So we drained all that out. Thankfully, we didn't get it running with just gasoline in the engine rather than oil. Who knows what would happen. But so we have to park it on the flat. So that is another project. But other than that, that's a good old truck. Another project, my dad's old Toyota Tundra. My truck is pretty old and a little bit, well, it's an 88 and it's kind of rusty. So thinking about switching over to using this truck. My dad just got a newish Tundra, so this one kind of needs a new wooden bed. Maybe do a little sheet metal work first, get it going for a couple years. Haven't decided if I want to fix this one, fix mine, get a completely different truck, or what. My dad also got a new car. That one needs a new car stereo because it's a VW and the stereos apparently die on them. Another project is the roof of the sawmill shed. It's the same shingles as are on the other shed out in the sand pit. Down there, the firewood processor, that's all pretty good. There's a couple of little hydraulic things that don't work on it. So, like the conveyor doesn't go backwards, which we don't really need all that often, but sometimes when it jams up, it would be pretty useful to just back it up a couple inches and loosen things up. Whole farmhouse is in pretty good shape. Some of the garage trim, even though it's pretty new, see the dark spots on it. it's starting to rot because the roof wasn't done quite right. So this building here with the rusted roof is, we call that the horse barn. And even though it probably hasn't had horses in it in 80 years, maybe less than that. But anyways, that barn really needs some work. All the siding's falling off, and it's in kind of an awkward spot. It blocks the view from the house out over the fields. So it'd be nice to move that. We don't really want to just demo it, but move that maybe over there somewhere. So we recently cleaned out this area of the sawmill. So you could put some ash boards here, because we have some ash logs we need to saw up. However, after letting it sit for a while, all these little mounds of sawdust showed up. So those are powder post beetles eating away at the floor. So before we stack a bunch of ash on top of here, we're gonna treat the floor and then also treat the boards. This is our sugar house. A couple of projects here are redoing this end of the shed, the sugar house. This is where we used to store wood, and now it's mostly just somewhat not junk storage, extra storage for things like drums and that sort of stuff. And we take racks of firewood, metal racks, and pick them up with forks on the backhoe, and we put them in this sliding door here and burn them right off the racks. It'd be nice to be able to put 2 racks in, but right now the roof is too low to drive the backhoe in, so you can't put 2 in because there's no room, because you can't fit the backhoe in. So we'd like to redo this woodshed. The cupola here also needs to be redone. There's doors that open up and they don't work all that well, particularly on a rainy day. They sort of funnel all the water into the building. So it'd be nice to make some sort of louvered thing up there so we don't need to have those doors on there. This is my dad's old shop, or now it's my grandpa's because he lives here at Hall Farm. It's in pretty good shape, well, considering its age, but red squirrels have been in through all the insulation, and the front door is probably never sealed all that well, being sliding doors. So one project for the sawmill building is to build a solar kiln somewhere. I thought about building it right on this wall. However, this pear tree's kind of in the way. We really do like the pear tree. It's kind of a classic here. But at the same time, it looks a little bit sad and it's kind of cracked at the base, so it might not be terribly long for this world. So on the sad day that this thing falls over, might build a solar kiln on this end of the sawmill shed. So another project is to redo the sap lines on this hill. Most of them are okay, but there's one line which we could really use a double line, change how it runs in, because right now a whole bunch comes into one, so it's hard to isolate problems. So it'd be good to get that redone. These are extra cabinets for my house. One of those two is probably going to go over the stove, so I can put the microwave there. This guy's the vanity for upstairs. My dad reminded me of a project we have for the firewood processor. The splitting chamber kind of needs to be rebuilt. It's a cool swing set. The monkey bars are all rotten, and it generally needs a little bit of work before it's playable again. And with Robin getting to be 2, pretty soon that'll be a good sized plaything for him. So that needs to be fixed. Yeah, there's the horse barn. It kind of ugly blocks the way. See all the boards falling off. So that's on the list. The log grapple we have on the excavator works pretty well most of the time. However, when it swings sideways, sometimes we break hydraulic hoses. So I think we could have a slightly better setup here. Perhaps this part that mounts on the excavator itself could be skinnier, or the little tabs could be longer, or something different, so we don't, or blocks, I don't know, something so to stop it from breaking hydraulic lines when it swings too far. So add that to the list. So here's the chamber from the firewood processor. It kind of needs some work. This piece on the side is bowed out, so it kind of makes the pieces just fall off to the side and jam up rather than coming out into the chute. So that little ear that's bent down shouldn't be bent down, it should just come out straight. Having that bent down makes the pieces jam up a little bit when we split them. So down there in the dark, there's a couple of rollers. The back axle that the chain runs around, the rollers are off center and they're all frozen on the shaft. So really that needs to be rebuilt or taken out so the chain runs equally. You can see on this side, the chain is barely sitting on little angle thing. On the other side, it's tucked all the way over in the corner. One thing that does is it makes these bars ride right along the side, and it wears out the tabs that hold on these bars. So the tabs break off and then the bars get all dangly and we have to bring the welder over and weld them back on again. It'd be nice to redo the bed of this truck. See, the deck plates are all warped up from people dropping rocks and stuff in it. This bed was not really designed for carrying dirt or rocks, but somebody put them in, bent up all the deck plates, so it makes it so the wood doesn't dump out that cleanly. Here's the stone wall project we're working on. We're working on making a sort of a two-tiered wall, one that'll wrap around here. There's actually more wall built down there, which is hidden behind the bushes. And then a lower wall here, sort of as a memorial garden for my mom. It'd be nice to have a place to hang out up here. This is one of the best views of the farm from up here. I'll show you that. The firewood processor around the corner there is the farmhouse. There's a tree there. Our hay fields. Woods line. This is pretty far down on the list, but when we get the garden done, it'd be cool to have this section cleared out because there's an old stone wall along there which is kind of getting overgrown. So if that got cleaned up a little bit and the trees cut back so you could actually see the stone wall, I think it would look nice. But yeah, maybe when I'm my dad's age that'll be done, or I'll hire some kid to do it. Pay Robin